Clint and Averil. I am Clint Hodges. I am a senior in aerospace engineering, and I'm from Macon, Georgia.
And my name is Averil Eagle. I'm a science, technology, and culture major from Savannah, Georgia.
And we are here to give you your history and traditions portion of your program. So first off, I'd like to welcome you to the Georgia Tech community, and now that you're all officially Yellow Jackets, we can let you in on some of these trade secrets, inside jokes, and fun, quirky things that comprise what it is to be a Georgia Tech Yellow Jacket. So get excited. We're going to learn some fight songs, learn some chants, learn all kind of fun stuff. I'll let you in some kind of some of the PG-13 type of secrets. Before we get started, though, we're going to start off with the tradition of having our SGA president teach you one of our most infamous traditions. So if we can, have Miss Ellie Creel come back out. Give her a round of applause.
Although there are many traditions here at Tech that convey our disdain for the University of Georgia, more commonly referred to on this campus as USIC-GA, there is one that is the most famous and the most used and the most loved, and that is the cheer. You may be waiting to get into a football game, or you might just be wearing a Georgia Tech shirt when you're walking down the street or in the airport. But a fellow Yellow Jacket will ask you, and I know that they will, what's the good word? So here's how this works. I'll say, what's the good word? And you'll reply, to hell with Georgia. And we're gonna do this 3 times. And then I'll say, how about them dogs? And you'll say, piss on them. So everybody stand up, we're gonna give it a try. What's the good word? To hell with Georgia! What's the good word? To hell with Georgia! What's the good word? To hell with Georgia! How about them dogs? Piss on them! Nice. Good job, everybody.
All right, thank you, Ellie.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Ellie. We'll practice it a little bit later, so remember right now. All right, to start off with, Georgia Tech has had a long history, and that history has been filled with rich traditions and inside jokes, things like that, dating back to our founding here. October 13th, 1885, the Georgia School of Technology was founded, later changing our name to the Georgia Institute of Technology. Back in that day, with 129 students and only 4 classes as options, life was kind of routine. Students would actually spend half their time in the academic building, which is Tech Tower, still around today, and the other half of their time in the shop building, actually tinkering with devices and making gadgets that they would sell to help pay for their tuition. Life's kind of routine, though, like I said, and like the students' lives today, students back then kind of lived and died by the whistle, which would signal the end of their shift.
Yep, so like Clint said, Atlanta was mostly wilderness and swamplands. There wasn't really much around, so what the Technion decided to do with all this free land and all this free time was to start a football team. This was kind of new during this time in our history. Baseball was the far more popular sport. So the Technion tried it out, and they actually were absolutely awful with their first team. They lost all 3 games their first season. They practiced at nearby Piedmont Park, which you may have seen, but they didn't really improve too much.
So an onlooker on these practices was a man by the name of Leonard Wood. Leonard was actually an officer in the Army, stationed at nearby Fort McPherson, not too far from the city, but he would spend his free time by traveling into the city of Atlanta looking for ways to occupy himself, ways to amuse himself. So one day he stumbled upon the Tech men practicing at Piedmont Park and noted how terrible they were. Luckily for the Tech men, though, Leonard had played football for Harvard University, which at the time was kind of a football powerhouse. So Leonard offered to play for the team and coach them as well.
There was one problem, though. Leonard was not a student, which therefore made him ineligible to play. So Wood, who already had his MD from Harvard, decided to enroll at Tech to study the only major offered at the time, mechanical engineering. From then on, with the help of Wood, practices started to improve dramatically.
So another team at the same time, or actually another university we've already heard about, the University of Georgia was also forming their first football team. And around 1893, they were kind of confident in their abilities, and to this day, Georgia and Georgia Tech had not played yet. So they issued a declaration to the entire Southeast, saying they would take any challengers in Athens on the football field, where they would beat them handedly. So naturally, the Tech men took up this challenge, and in 1893, they traveled to Athens by train to play the University of Georgia Bulldogs at home. With them, they brought students from an all-girls school who wore ribbons of white and gold in their hair to show support for the Tech men. So to this day, our official school colors are old gold and white.
So the game was played, and Tech walloped UGA. By the end of the third quarter, the score was actually 28-6. Yeah, so, but you know, UGA didn't really take too kindly to this. They didn't really like it that much. So they started throwing dirt, rocks, mud, anything that they could get their hands on at the Georgia Tech players and officials. Leonard Wood actually had a gash in his head that he was bleeding from. So the officials thought that this was too much, that the UGA players were getting not so classy, and so they had to call the game without the fourth quarter even being played.
So obviously, the Tech men needed to get out of Dodge and fast. So instead of boarding the original passenger train they were scheduled to leave on at the original game's end, they got on the next train available out of Athens, which happened to be a freight train. Unfortunately for the Tech men, though, the tracks ahead had not been cleared. So near Lawrenceville, Georgia, a city not too far from here, the train the Tech men were on got in a wreck. Luckily, no one was injured. They had to get off that train, stumble over to the other train that they were originally intended on getting on, and finally, late that night, made their way back to campus.
There was a reporter with them this entire time that saw the Tech men get on the train and off the train and crash and everything. He was with them the whole time. And he would later report in the newspaper the next morning, the wrecks rambled back to Tech. Now, this was the first instance of Georgia Tech students actually being referred to as ramblin' wrecks.
So obviously, the Georgia Tech men were furious. They'd worked so hard and practiced so long, only to have their victory spoiled by the Bulldogs' complete lack of class.
Also a tradition.
Yeah, definitely. So they were kind of frustrated. So they went back to their dorms that night, which they lovingly referred to as the shacks due to their lack of basic amenities. They went back there, and the student grabbed his mandolin and started making up a song on the spot about what it was like to be a Georgia Tech Yellow Jacket and all of its indulgences. That song actually has been kept, and to this day modified into our official school fight song, the modern-day Ramblin' Wreck fight song, which we will teach you now. If you guys would stand up, we also have the help us some FASET leaders.
Proud FASET leaders.
A lot of standing and sitting. It's all right. It'll work out. You guys can see that, right?
It'll get a little smaller.
Oh, it's all right. It's all right. Technology. Anyway, enjoy. I encourage you guys to clap along, look at the lyrics, sing along. We got some FASET leaders in here to help with the harmony. And I'll set this down.
Oh, Ramblin' Wreck from Georgia Tech and a hell of an engineer. A hell of an engineer. Like all the jolly good fellows, I drink my whiskey clear. I'm a Ramblin' Wreck from Georgia Tech and a hell of an engineer. Oh, if I had a daughter, sir, I'd dress her in white and gold. Put her on the campus to the red and gold. And if I had a son, sir, I'd tell you what you do. He would yell to hell with Georgia like his daddy used to do. Oh, if I had a barrel of rum to sugar 3,000 pounds, a college bell to put it in, clapper to stir it around. Drink to all the good fellows who come from far and near. I'm a ramblin', gambling, hell of an engineer. Hey!
Don't worry, we'll get you back up again.
Consequently, applies to all majors, even non-engineering.
Alright, so they wrote the Ramblin' Wreck, but the Tech men's animosity wasn't really out of their system yet. So one Tech man actually climbed to the top of the shacks and painted a slogan that is forever burned into the hearts of every Yellow Jacket. To hell with Georgia. Yeah. Now we practice this with Ellie, but it never really gets old. So, FASET, what's the good word?
Now, FASET, tell me, what is the good word?
What's the good word?
How about them dogs?
That's right, good job. I mean, you're gonna hear it all day. So, all right, around the same time, during this time in our history, another tradition came to Tech, and we're talking about the whistle. Now, you're gonna hear this every single day, pretty much, of your Georgia Tech career. It blows every hour from 7:55 in the morning till 5:55 in the evening. It marks the ending of class times, and it's blown every time we score at a home football game. It can be heard all over campus.
All right, so one nickname you might hear yourself referred to around campus is Rats. Now, don't think of this as a negative moniker at all. Rats, dating back to Tech's days as a military institution, actually stood for Recruit at Tech. Nowadays, the acronym is morphed into recently acquired tech student, which is exactly what all of you are. Now, one tradition that rats get involved in right off the bat, you guys are already jumping on top of it, FASET orientation. Just to give you guys a little background, this is actually the 40th anniversary of modern day what is FASET orientation. Yeah, so we're going pretty strong. We kind of know what we're doing here. We've got some great FASETers. I definitely encourage you guys to rely on them. We've got someone basically from every major, someone that's done basically everything here on campus, legal and illegal probably. But ask them questions, rely on them, and look to them as your upperclassmen mentors. They're great resources.
Right. So another tradition that goes along with rats are rat caps. And these are hats that are given out at first year convocation, which you're all invited to. First year convocation, and you filled out with your name, major, and all the home scores, the scores from your first season here at Tech. These first started in the early 1900s, and many institutions had them. But now, Tech is one of the few that still keeps them up today. One of the biggest parts of Tech that keeps up the rat cap tradition is the band. So keep an eye out for them on game day. They'll show you how to fill them out. Also at first year convocation, you'll get a T-book that describes many more traditions than Clint and I could ever go over. So we encourage you to go to that, get your rat cap, your T-book, and you'll be set.
So one very important part about owning a rat cap is obeying the rat rules. Now these rules were kind of abolished when hazing was kind of done away with in the late 60s. But these rat rules, just to let you know about them, require all rats to wear their rat caps every day of the week except for Sunday. Now, a common punishment for breaking these rat rules was being summoned to a rat court, where your sentence would then probably be shaving a T in your head if you were a guy, and then if you're a girl, you'd have tiny ribbons of white and gold braided in your hair. So definitely be wary. It's all right. You're not going to get called to a rat court nowadays, but most T's I guess are voluntarily shaved nowadays.
All right, like Clint said, we don't have the rat rules anymore, but definitely fill out your rat cap. It's one of my favorite things that I have from my freshman year. So look out for those at first year convocation. And here we go.
So about the same time that rat caps were brought onto campus, the alma mater was written and then put to music and brought to campus. The alma mater is another way that Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets kind of remember their school pride and think of your true Georgia Tech colors of white and gold. Sung before every football game. We're going to teach that to you guys now.
So
if you guys
stand
like
up.
to stand up.
Please stand up.
All right, and again, with the help of the wonderful facilitators we have here, we'll sing along.
You're being recorded, so. Oh, sons of Tech, arise, behold. The banner it reigns supreme. White and praises, triumph and gleam. Too fast. Spirit of the cheering on resounds with joy revealing. A brotherhood in praise and song, in memory of the days gone by. O Scion of the Southland, in our hearts you shall forever Oh, God.
It usually goes a little smoother when we have the band here, but they're a band here right now, so. It was beautiful though, beautiful. All right, so around the same time that we wrote the alma mater, our Tech's football team was actually doing very, very well. In fact, in 1917, Tech won its first national championship under the leadership of Coach John Heisman. The football team was great, so the students and alumni wanted to celebrate this. So they decided to come up with this idea called homecoming. This first started off with a race in which the winners won a cake.
So this cake race, as it were, has been kept as a tradition to this day. The cake race is a 3/4 of a mile race around campus, starting at the baseball field and ending at the football field. You're only allowed to participate in it as a freshman, which is